Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Saira Mujtaba and with me is R.S. Raghu, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurates Global Ayush Investment and Innovation Summit at Gandhinagar in Gujarat. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman says reforms undertaken by India before and after pandemic will ensure it remains one of the fastest growing economies in the world. World economy to grow at a slower pace due to Russia-Ukraine conflict, says International Monetary Fund. Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla says Vietnam is one of India's closest partner and important pillar of its Act East policy and Indo-Pacific vision. New Delhi stresses on UN guiding principles of humanitarian assistance and reiterates its call for immediate cessation of violence and hostilities in Ukraine. India and Finland vow to strengthen cooperation in energy sector. And in IPL cricket, Delhi Capitals beat Punjab Kings by 9 wickets at Brabourne Stadium in Mumbai. And now the news in detail. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that Heal in India can become a big brand of this decade and wellness centers based on Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha can be very popular. Mr. Modi also announced to create a new category for Indian visa, Ayush visa, so that foreigners can avail the benefit of Indian expertise in the Ayush sector. He was addressing after inaugurating the Global Ayush Investment and Innovation Summit at Mahatma Mandir in Gandhinagar, Gujarat on Wednesday. The Prime Minister of Mauritius, Praveen Kumar Jagannath, and Director General of World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, were also present on the occasion. Prime Minister Modi also digitally launched Ayush Export Promotion Council on this occasion. Mr. Modi also launched IT initiatives like Ayush Information Hub, Ayush Next and Ayush Soft. Mr. Modi said that the Ayush sector will attract maximum investment in the near future.
2014 से पहले जहां आयुष सेक्टर में $3 बिलियन से भी कम का काम था, आज ये बढ़कर $18 बिलियन को भी पार कर गया है। जिस प्रकार पूरी दुनिया में आयुष प्रोडक्ट्स की मांग बढ़ रही है, उससे ये ग्रोथ आने वाले वर्षों में और ज्यादा बढ़ेगी। नेशनल सप्लीमेंट्स हो, मेडिसिन्स का सप्लाई चेन मैनेजमेंट हो, आयुष आधारित डायग्नोस्टिक टूल्स हो या फिर टेलीमेडिसिन, हर तरफ इन्वेस्टमेंट और इनोवेशन की नई संभावनाएं हैं।
Earlier, addressing the inauguration ceremony, the Prime Minister of Mauritius, Praveen Kumar Jagannath, said that India is known as the pharmacy of the world.
The WHO World Centre for Traditional Medicine will undoubtedly promote India's standing in the field of traditional medicine and highlight India's long-standing and valued expertise in the field of traditional, complementary and integrative medicine. India's rich heritage of medical wisdom derived in the field of traditional medicine for ages deserves to be shared and given more light.
Speaking on the occasion, the Director General of WHO, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, said that India will go to the whole world and the whole world will come to India through Ayush.
The Ayush sector is also growing significantly by 17% per year since 2014. In fact, Ayush industry is projected to reach $23 billion by the end of this year. It's easy to see why this fast-moving industry, which spans so many areas, dietary, well-being and pharmaceutical, is attracting an array of investment interests from entrepreneurs to tech companies and healthcare centers and large manufacturers. Through the Ayush sector, India will go to the whole world and the whole world will come to India.
Later in the day, Prime Minister Modi also laid the foundation stone and inaugurated various development projects worth 22,000 crore rupees at a special function organized at Dahod in Gujarat.
Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has said reforms undertaken by India before and after the pandemic will ensure it remains one of the fastest growing economies in the world in the decade ending 2030. Speaking at an event organized by the Atlantic Council in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday, Ms. Sitharaman said India's economic recovery from the impact of coronavirus pandemic has been distinct and pronounced. She said that the government decided not to levy COVID tax on people to get out of the pandemic, as it was firm that country's revenue to rescue the economy was not going to come from taxing the people. She said the government has made sure that free food grains, pulses and some quantity of cooking gas were distributed to 800 million Indians in 2020. She said the free food grain program continues even now. Nirmala Sitharaman and RBI Governor Shaktikant Das on Wednesday attended the G20 Emerging Market Economies meeting. The meeting was organized by the International Monetary Fund in Washington, D.C. on the sidelines of the upcoming G20 Finance Ministers and Central Bank Governors meeting. During the meeting, Ms. Sitharaman shared her insights on the economic outlook, risks and near-term policy challenges like food, energy security and tightening of global financial conditions for emerging market economies. The International Monetary Fund in a report said that the world economy will grow at a slower pace due to Russia-Ukraine conflict. The IMF in its report forecasted growth of 3.6% this year compared to 6.1% last year. Originally, it had predicted 4.4% growth this year. The IMF also predicts the Russian economy will shrink by 8.5% this year and Ukraine's will fall by a whopping 35%. The United States, China and Europe were also expected to see slower growth as a result of the conflict. In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a discussion on India-Britain relations on a firm footing. In conversation are Ashok Sajjanhar, former diplomat, and Manas Pratim Bhuyan, journalist.
Ambassador Sajjanhar, the bilateral cooperation between India and United Kingdom has witnessed a major upswing in the last few years. The India-UK relationship was elevated to a comprehensive strategic partnership during the India-UK virtual summit held between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his British counterpart Boris Johnson in May last year. At the summit, we know the two sides adopted a 10-year roadmap to expand ties, key areas of trade and economy, defense and security, climate change, clean technology and people-to-people connection, among others. So last month, British Foreign Secretary Liz Truss visited India, and now British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is arriving in India on a two-day visit on Thursday. Though the visit is taking place in the backdrop of the crisis in Ukraine, the two sides are expected to delve into a range of issues to further expand the already close ties between the two sides. So what is your expectation, Ambassador Sajjanhar, from the visit of Prime Minister Boris Johnson to India?
Yeah, thank you very much, Manas. I think the first aspect is that it's an extremely important visit because it's the first visit by the UK Prime Minister, Mr. Boris Johnson, to India. We have planned it in the past also in 2021 in January. He was to come to India as the chief guest at our Republic Day celebrations. But then because of the increasing number of COVID-19 cases in the United Kingdom, he could not make that visit. And then in April, again, it was rescheduled. His visit was rescheduled. But again, he could not come because of the raging number of cases in India. That was the second wave in India that was going on. And it was only at the last minute that he cancelled his visit in April last year. So it is extremely significant and important that Prime Minister Boris Johnson is coming to India for this important visit. As you said, the visit takes place in the backdrop of the conflict of the war in Ukraine, the aggression by Russia against Ukraine, which started on the 24th of February. It's already the 56th day of the conflict, but there doesn't seem to be any end in sight. But I think in addition to the geopolitical and the global issues and challenges that both the countries are facing, because obviously the attack of Russia on Ukraine has had an impact not only on Ukraine, it has led to a lot of destruction, not only on Russia because of the sanctions. There have been huge, there's been a huge impact on its economy, but also the world. But I think the focus of Prime Minister Boris Johnson's visit is really going to be on bilateral issues. And that's what he said, that, it's going to be, the focus is going to be on jobs, on creating more employment in both the countries. As you said very correctly, Manas, that at the virtual summit that took place last year in May, there was a 10-year vision that was created by both the Prime Ministers, Vision 2030. And there have been discussions that have been going on both the sides. There has been very significant progress that has already been achieved on the free trade agreement between India and the United Kingdom. So I think that is going to be a very important tool of discussion. There will be, I think, from both sides, we will try to take this relationship forward. Several of the chapters, several of the articles for the FTA have already been agreed upon, have already been decided upon. So I think that will be an important aspect. As you mentioned, Elizabeth Truss, the Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom, was here on the 31st of March. And then also there were discussions that took place. Before that, when Liz Truss was the Secretary of Trade, then also she has been visiting India and she's doing discussions with her then partner, Mr. Goel. And in December of 2020, we also had the visit of Mr. Dominic Raab, who was then the Foreign Secretary. So the point I'm making here is that there has been a very intense interaction between the two sides. And we know that Prime Minister Modi had visited the United Kingdom in 2015 and again in 2018. And that provided a huge boost to the bilateral partnership. And before that, Prime Minister Theresa May and David Cameron had come here. But for Prime Minister Boris Johnson, this is the first visit. And I'm sure, as he has said, India is an extremely significant player on the global scene. It's the largest democracy and it's the fastest growing economy. So I think we can expect a great deal from this visit, which starts tomorrow morning. Manas.
Ambassador Sarjan, we have also seen the last few years greater cooperation between the UK and India on defense cooperation. We have seen UK's largest warship, HMS Queen Elizabeth, making a foray into the Indian Ocean region and visiting India last year. This is one of the biggest aircraft carrier globally, and it had visited India in July last year, demonstrating UK's commitment to defense cooperation with India. But besides that, in fact, both the countries, India and UK, are strongly committed for an open and inclusive Indo-Pacific. They have been reiterating this stand and reaffirming their position that both of them will work very closely to ensure a free and open Indo-Pacific at a time when we have seen growing muscle flexing in the region, in the Indo-Pacific by China. So how do you see Prime Minister Boris Johnson's visit to India in the context of defense cooperation and particularly for expanding cooperation between the two countries in the Indo-Pacific region, which is a very, very key area of concern for both the countries?
No, absolutely. You're very right. Number one is security. Number two, defense. And the third, Indo-Pacific. I think these are three areas which are also going to be at the focus of attention. Now, as far as security and defense is concerned, we are aware that there are a large number of British companies which collaborate with India, with Indian companies, and they provide large number of items for defense manufacturing. And that is a very important area of cooperation. On the Indo-Pacific also, as you mentioned yourself, Queen Elizabeth, that naval ship was in India, in the Indian Ocean waters and also in the South China Sea. Because all countries around and Britain, United Kingdom has a presence in the Indian Ocean, so to say, in the Indo-Pacific, because it has the Diego Garcia Islands quite close to Mauritius in the Arabian Sea, in the Indian Ocean. So they have a physical presence here, also physical, they are stakeholders and they have interest here. And of course, the United Kingdom also as vibrant democracy and global trade is also invested in having a very strong, a free and open, inclusive and prosperous Indo-Pacific. And the aggressiveness and assertiveness that we can see by China in the China Sea, that I think is a cause for concern for many countries. Of course, that was the reason why the whole concept of Indo-Pacific was again revived in November 2017 at the East Asia Summit in Manila, when President Trump was there and from the United States and India and all the other countries. And also that was the place where we revived the Quad concept. Quad had been set up in 2000 but then after a few Malabar exercises, this could not really happen. This could not take place. And so after a period of about 10 years, there was gain. And the United Kingdom, although it is not a part of the Quad, but it has also been very keen. It has come up with its own Indo-Pacific strategy, its own Indo-Pacific initiative. And so it is working in tandem with the other countries in the region to ensure that there is freedom of navigation in this area, and also to ensure that there is freedom of overflights. So I think these are also issues which will be discussed between the two prime ministers, the two delegations, and this will promote better understanding and strong partnership and relations between the two sides. Manas.
Ambassador Sajjan, thank you so very much for your detailed perspective about India-UK ties and expectations from Prime Minister Boris Johnson's visit to India beginning Thursday. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts.
Welcome back to the news. Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla has said that Vietnam is one of India's closest partner and an important pillar of its Act East policy and Indo-Pacific vision. He also said India and Vietnam should further strengthen their strategic partnership. During his interaction with the Secretary General of Vietnam Communist Party, Nguyen Phu Trong, Mr. Birla mentioned that India and Vietnam can further expand their cooperation in areas like climate change and sustainable development, healthcare and digital economy. On the second day of its visit to Vietnam on Wednesday, the Indian parliamentary delegation led by Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla called on Mr. Trong. Highlighting the two countries' shared vision in the defense sector, Mr. Birla noted that the Indo-Vietnam defense partnership is growing rapidly in areas like defense industry, maritime security, capacity building programs, and UN peacekeeping. He added that these defense ties are a major contributor to the peace, security, and stability of the Indo-Pacific region. Speaking about trade and economic ties, Mr. Birla expressed his happiness to note that India and Vietnam strive to build reliable and strong supply chains. The delegation also met Chairman of National Assembly of Vietnam, Vang Thien Hue. Both the leaders not only restored the suspended direct air services between the two countries after COVID-19 pandemic, but also inaugurated air services on new routes.
India has stressed on the importance of the United Nations guiding principles of humanitarian assistance and reiterated its call for immediate cessation of violence and hostilities in Ukraine. A report.
Speaking at the UN Security Council meeting on Ukraine's humanitarian situation, India's Deputy Permanent Representative to the UN, R. Ravindra, said that humanitarian action must always be guided by the principles of humanitarian assistance that are humanity, neutrality, impartiality and independence. He said these measures should never be politicized, adding that India continues to remain deeply concerned at the worsening situation and reiterates its call for an immediate cessation of violence and hostilities. Mr. Ravindra said that when innocent human lives are at stake, diplomacy must prevail as the only viable option. He said India supported calls urging for guarantees of safe passage to deliver essential humanitarian and medical supplies, including through the establishment of permanent humanitarian corridors. He said India hopes the international community will continue to respond positively to the evolving humanitarian requirements. India has been sending humanitarian supplies to Ukraine and its neighbors, which include medicines and other essential relief materials. India's Deputy Permanent Representative said New Delhi is providing more medical supplies to Ukraine in the coming days. Mr. Ravindra said that the impact of the situation is being felt beyond the region, with increasing food and energy costs, especially for many developing countries. India also noted the findings of the Secretary General Antonio Guterres' Global Crisis Response Group Task Team issued last week and welcomed their recommendation for exempting purchases of food by the World Food Programme for humanitarian assistance from food export restrictions with immediate effect. India also said that energy security is equally a serious concern and needs to be addressed through cooperative efforts. Speaking about the safe return of its citizens from Ukraine, India's Deputy Permanent Representative to the UN noted that the country India has ensured the safe return of about 22,500 citizens from Ukraine, involving 90 flights. He also said India also assisted nationals from 18 other countries in the evacuation process. Anita Anand for World News, All India Radio.
Russia gave Ukrainian fighters in Mariupol a fresh ultimatum to surrender on Wednesday. Thousands of Russian troops backed by artillery and rocket barrages were advancing in what Ukrainian officials have called the Battle of Donbass. A Ukrainian presidential advisor said on Tuesday night that Russia was hitting the Azovstal steel plant, the main remaining stronghold in Mariupol, with bunker buster bombs. After an earlier ultimatum to surrender lapsed as midnight approached, Russia's defense ministry said not a single Ukrainian soldier had laid down their weapons and it renewed the proposal. Ukrainian commanders have vowed not to surrender. The United States, Canada and Britain said they would send more artillery weaponry, and the White House said new sanctions were being prepared.
Russian forces have seized the city of Cremina in eastern Ukraine. The regional governor in a statement has said that Ukrainian troops have withdrawn from the city. Meanwhile, the International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA, says the Ukrainian Atomic Power Regulator has reported restoring direct communications with the Chernobyl nuclear power plant after Russian troops left the facility. In his first overseas tour after assuming the office of the Chief of Naval Staff, Admiral R. Hari Kumar paid a 3-day visit to Maldives, which concluded on Wednesday. During the visit, the Admiral called on Maldivian President Mr. Ibrahim Mohammed Saleh and Maldivian Defence Minister Maria Didi. Admiral Kumar hosted a reception on board Indian naval ship Sutlej in honour of the Defence Minister of Maldives and the leadership of Maldives National Defence Forces MNDF. INS Sutlej is currently deployed to Maldives for undertaking joint hydrographic survey under the MOU on hydrographic cooperation.
A commander and associate member of terror outfit Lashkar-e-Taiba, Sheikh Sajjad, has been notified by India as a terrorist under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967. The Ministry of Home Affairs in a notification said Sheikh Sajjad has been actively radicalizing, motivating and recruiting youth of Jammu and Kashmir to support terrorist organization Lashkar-e-Taiba and has been involved in terror funding. The ministry said Sheikh Sajjad was found involved in hatching criminal conspiracy in eliminating prominent journalists along with his 2 personal security officers in June 2018 in Srinagar. Power and New and Renewable Energy Minister R.K. Singh held a meeting with Minister of Economic Affairs of Finland, Mika Lintil, in New Delhi on Wednesday. During the meet, Mr. Singh highlighted India's achievements in the renewable energy sector and conveyed that India is the only G20 country and major economy to have its actions with the nationally determined contributions as per the Paris Agreement. The minister urged the Finnish business industry to collaborate and work on the opportunities in the renewable energy sector in India. Both the ministers stressed the need to promote and strengthen the cooperation between Finland and India, especially in the energy sector. The Finnish side expressed their interest to cooperate with India on collaboration in the area of efficient green hydrogen and green ammonia production, its storage, their uses in transportation sector, recycling of batteries and smart metering software.
On to sports now. In IPL cricket, Delhi Capitals defeated Punjab Kings by 9 wickets at the Brabourne Stadium in Mumbai a short while ago. Chasing a target of 116 runs set by Punjab Kings, Delhi Capitals overhauled the target, scoring 119 runs in 10.3 overs for the loss of 1 wicket only. David Warner, with unbeaten 60, was the top scorer, while Prithvi Shaw made 41. On Thursday, Mumbai Indians will take on Chennai Super Kings at 7:30 p.m.
In wrestling, Harpreet Singh and Sachin Sehrawat bagged a bronze each as Indian Greco-Roman wrestlers concluded their campaign at the Asian Wrestling Championship 2022 with 5 medals in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia on Wednesday. A former Asian Championship silver medalist, Harpreet defeated Korea's Sejin Yang 4-2 in the quarterfinal before going down to Iran's Rasul Sadeh Ghamsiri in the semis by fall in the 82 kg weight category. In the bronze medal match, Harpreet was declared the winner after Jafar Khan from Qatar suffered an injury.
And now let's take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. Let's take a look at the press reports on China first. Many media houses write that a slew of Chinese economic data confirmed that the world's second largest economy has sputtered as government combats the worst outbreak of COVID so far on the mainland. Retail sales tumbled 2% during March. Human Rights Watch writes the planned visit to China by the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights should meet minimum standards to be considered credible, Human Rights Watch and 59 other groups said. Many media houses report that China has confirmed signing of Solomon Island Security Pact as US warns of regional instability. The Fayul News reports that prominent Tibetan writer Tashi Wangchuk continues to face harassment from government officials even after completing his 5-year prison sentence.
Now let's have a look at the press reports on Nepal. The Annapurna Express reports that Indian Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla has said that Nepal and Bangladesh are among the top 10 export destinations for India. The Himalayan Times reports that Nepali Congress President and Prime Minister Sher Bahadur Deuba has claimed that a plot was being made to break the existing coalition in the government.
Now let's take a look at press reports on Pakistan. Dawn reports that suspense around newly elected Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's federal cabinet finally died down on Tuesday after federal ministers and state ministers took their oaths to shape up the 37-strong cabinet. Pakistan Today reports that amid criticism of its judgments, the Supreme Court on Tuesday hit back, saying it has become a culture in Pakistan to blame the courts if the decisions announced by the judges are unfavorable.
Now let's have a look at the press reports on Bangladesh. Subsequent to violent clashes on Monday and Tuesday between traders and students in New Market area of Dhaka, which left 1 person dead and several injured, students have threatened to protest again if the market is opened before meeting their demand, reports Daily Star. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has said a group of political parties in patronization of BNP Jamaat alliance is engaged in conspiracy to oust the Awami League government, reports Daily Sun.
Now let's take a look at the press reports on Afghanistan. Tulu News reports that Iran's foreign ministry said that Tehran will not accept political representatives of the Islamic Emirate until the Islamic Emirate is recognized by the world. Iran International reports that Taliban's acting foreign minister and his Iranian counterpart have held a telephonic conversation about recent tensions between the two countries. A quick look at the headlines once again. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurates Global Ayush Investment and Innovation Summit at Gandhinagar in Gujarat. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman says reforms undertaken by India before and after pandemic will ensure it remains one of the fastest growing economies in the world. World economy to grow at a slower pace due to Russia-Ukraine conflict, says International Monetary Fund. Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla says Vietnam is one of India's closest partner and an important pillar of its Act East policy and Indo-Pacific vision. New Delhi stresses on United Nations guiding principles of humanitarian assistance and reiterates its call for immediate cessation of violence and hostilities in Ukraine. India and Finland vows to strengthen cooperation in the energy sector. And in IPL cricket, Delhi Capitals beat Punjab Kings by 9 wickets at Brabourne Stadium in Mumbai. And now, before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Tunisia.
Vaishnav Jana to तेनिकायज पीर पराई जाने रे पार दुख उपकार करे तुए मने अभिमानी नाने रे सकल लोकमान सौने वंदे निंदाने.
And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.